It's kind of like your wardrobe. We change our wardrobes for a variety of reasons. We grow, our style changes, maybe fashion trends change. Maybe we enter a new phase as a human being and, we're leaving behind the goth phase of our teenage years. Our styles change over time. And thank goodness, because there are many styles that, I am really glad they will never come back. Basically, it's this. Wardrobes are not a set it and forget it thing, and neither is branding. And your brand will change over time because you as a human will evolve over time. You as a teacher will evolve over time. And how can we tell that it's time for a rebrand? Well, in today's broadcast, we're going to be looking at 5 signs that it could be time to consider a rebrand and, how rebranding can help your business get to where you want it to go. And I want to be really clear from the get-go here. Rebranding is not something that's always visual or client-facing. I know that a lot of people associate the idea of branding as like my logo or, this is, my brand is redoing my website or my brand is picking out colors. But that's not really what a brand is. Oftentimes, a rebrand will be something that is not client-facing, and it's going to be more of an internal shift, and it helps us like process and realign what might feel out of whack in our business model. And sometimes, yes, it is an external shift that will help shift client perceptions so that people know who you work with and what makes you excited as a teacher. So today we're going to walk through 5 different signs, and we're also going to talk about regrettable fashion phases. Maybe. Am I kidding? Am I not kidding? You're not sure, are you? All right. So before we get any further into the broadcast, let me introduce myself for those of you who might be new here. My name is Sara Campbell. I am a business strategist, mindset, and marketing coach for music studio owners and online education experts just like you. And every week, we talk about those topics. We talk about branding strategies. We talk about business strategies. We talk about marketing strategies. And we talk about the mindsets that we need to have in place in order for those things to work. And today, we are talking about rebranding. And it's one of my favorite topics because rebranding is something that I'm really passionate about because I have seen how it can help someone get out of a rut and really allow business owners to get to where they want to go. So let's dig into this today. But before we do that, I want to say hello to a few people. Okay, Elizabeth's tuning in from Central New York. Susan's tuning in from Toledo. I love it. Mary, nice to see you, turning in from Westchester, New York. Pete says hello, and Victoria's tuning in on YouTube from New Jersey. Welcome, welcome. If you are watching live or on the replay, please be sure to say hello and let me know, have you thought about rebranding your studio? Let's dig into this today. Here we go. All right, and we are back with the topic of the day, 5 signs that it's time to rebrand your music studio. I'm very excited to share these tips with you all today. And let me just do a little behind the scenes magic for a moment and make sure that we have the links all headed to the right place. I believe we do. We're going to update one more link behind the scenes and make sure that it's going to the right place too. All right, this is going to be good. Okay, so if you're joining me, say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and let me know. I'd love to know from you. Here's the question of the day, right? Question of the day is, have you ever rebranded your business? Simple yes or no. Have you rebranded your business? And if you have, I'd love to know, what are some of the things that you did in your rebrand? If you haven't, I have a different question for you. I'd like you to answer the question, how long has it been since you visited what your brand is? And I'm going to go ahead and say I have rebranded my business a couple of different times. And it's actually been about 2 years since we've looked at rebranding here at Savvy Music Studio. And that means that we're going to be digging into some rebranding this year and making sure that everything's in alignment. Practice what I like to practice what I preach here because, hey, it's important, right? It's important to revisit those foundations inside of your business so that it feels like it's in alignment, and that you are very clear on who you are as a business owner, what your business provides for other people, and how you can communicate those things. Okay, I see some good answers in here. We got Mary saying, okay, no, I haven't done it yet. Karen says, kind of, sort of. Jennifer says, no, not yet. Okay, great. Hey, you guys are not alone because rebranding is something that many of us consider over the period of having our businesses. So let's get to all of the good stuff here. Oh, I love it. Susan says, no, but I'm doing that soon. Susan's going to be joining us in Branding Bootcamp this September, and it's going to be awesome. All right. So let's get to these 5 signs. As we learn out loud here today, I encourage you to share your hashtag takeaways down below. Let us know what resonates with you. Let us know what those aha moments are, and I'll be happy to bring those up onto the screen for those who are watching live with us. And for those who are watching on the replay, please jump into the conversation. I love to come back and have chats with people. So, all right, let's get to it. We do have the Savvy Sara bot all set up. And for those who are on the Book of Face, if you drop the word rebrand down below, you'll be able to get a hold of today's show notes. For those who are in listening over on YouTube, you're going to click this link. And for those who are watching on Instagram, I want to let you know we do have things set up. So if you want to get a hold of the show notes, you can put rebrand down below, and I'll make sure to jot down your name. And we'll make sure that the Savvy Sara bot sets you up too. Erica says on Instagram, I haven't done it yet, but I definitely need to. Erica, it's time. Let's embrace it. I'd love to send you the show notes from today. So let's see. Here we go, guys. Here are 5 signs that it may be time to consider a rebrand. Yeah. All right. Sign number 1. Here we go. And you know what? I lost my chat window. Give me a moment. Let me make sure that it's up. Where did you go, chat window? Oh, you're hiding. Okay, there we go. I'm bringing you over here. So, the first sign is a very important one, and this might be the sign that's the most obvious. When your business model changes, it is time to revisit your branding. So let's give some examples, like clear examples of what that change might look like. It could be maybe you've shifted, like one that I've seen with a lot of clients, and I've worked with a lot of people on this. If you have shifted your business model from being a solo teacher to a multi-teacher studio, if that has happened, it is time to revisit your branding because those are some really big changes. And what we're doing, what we do branding wise for a sole prop, like a single teacher studio, is going to be different than a multi-teacher studio. Because what we want to communicate if you're a multi-teacher studio, it's not just about you, right? So we've got to think about, how does that brand shift as we bring on new teachers, as we bring on new instruments and things like that. Some other ideas for like business model changes could be if, and I see this quite frequently, especially in the piano teaching world, if you've shifted from providing primarily one-on-one lessons and you've gone into a group teaching model. That's another big shift, and that branding is going to be quite different. So, this can take place in a few different ways. If you've shifted your business model and you want to consider a rebrand, you're going to be looking at things like revisiting your mission statements, revisiting the values of the business, revisiting things like your unique value proposition, and thinking about how does this change the visual aspects that we're presenting in our marketing. How do we start branding ourselves in a way that's going to communicate that we have multiple instruments, that we have multiple teachers. And, thinking that through, it takes a little bit of time, but it's super worth it, because if you've shifted your business model, we want to make sure that your branding is going to feed that business model, right? Because when we don't shift that branding and we keep doing the same things, then the stuff that's on our social media, the stuff that I know people think of me as a social media marketing coach, but I do a lot more than that, right? The stuff that's the physical flyers that you print out, the ads that you purchase in a High School Musical program, all of these things will shift with the business model change. So if you've considered a business model change, or if you've gone through one in the past year, it's time to think about rebranding, right? So I'd love to know, for those who are watching live or on the replay, where are you in that particular item? Have you shifted your business model lately? I know that I have. I've shifted some things here at Savvy Music Studio, and the offers have changed a little bit, and I'm kind of refocusing on what this model looks like. So we're going to be digging into how do we communicate those model changes, and how do we make sure that it's in alignment with what we want to show to the world, right? Okay, so that's sign number one. If sign number one is something that you think might apply to you, let us know down below. And let's move on to number two. There we go. Okay. Sign number two is when your business goes through a big growth spurt. So it could be that you haven't actually shifted your business model, but you have gone from like 0 to 60 in terms of the speed inside of your business. Maybe a year ago you had 7 students, and this year you have 27 students. That's a huge shift, right? Or perhaps for those of you who are online course creators, maybe you launched a new course and you've welcomed in 50 new members to your course. That's a lot of change in a short period of time. And so when we go through a big growth spurt, it's time to make sure that we look back at what we have as our brand and see if anything needs to be tweaked. Or if it doesn't need to be tweaked, we need to look at what our mission statement is, what our values are, how we communicate the benefits of working with us, and make sure that it's very clear, not to potential clients, but actually to our current clients. And let me explain what I mean by that. The other day, I was having a great conversation with some clients, and we were talking about how a lot of times policy issues are not actually policy issues. They're branding issues, because we haven't gotten clear with how we communicate what we do, how we do it, how we expect clients to act inside of the business, how we expect ourselves to act inside of our business. And we haven't really taken the time to onboard new clients and get them integrated into the community that you've built. And so if you've gone through a really big growth spurt, this is something that I want you to think about doing. Ah, yes. Julie says your ideal clients will appreciate your policies, especially if we can communicate them in clear ways, right? If we can communicate those policies in clear ways, it's magical. It's magical. All right, let me pop over here for a second and make sure that we've got. Okay, great. Alexis, I see that she's watching over on the personal page, and I'll make sure that we reach out to you with the notes for Rebrand. Good, good. Okay, so let's come back to item number 2. Let's see what others are saying. All right, great. I see this. Karen says, I'm getting a lot of calls, and she has a wait list, but she knows that could change. She doesn't want to add more hours, but she hates losing out on potential stars, especially when they may be ideal clients. Ooh, well, you know what? This brings us to a great point. Okay, this actually is a good transition into item number 3. Another way to consider that it's time for a rebrand is when the majority of inquiries that you are fielding are not actually a good fit. And this is something that is rather interesting, because those of you who have busy studios, right, and you're not actually taking on any new clients, then one of our typical reactions to that is if you're full, you say, oh, well, I'm full right now, but I can put you on a wait list. And the wait list can be useful if the wait list is a good one, right? So I'm going to give you, like, here's a little extra tip for those who have wait lists right now. I want to invite you to add a new part of your process. As part of your waiting list, I want you to start vetting those people. I know that sounds weird and a little bit judgy, okay? But our job as business owners is to welcome in the right people to our businesses, right? We want to set up, as my friend Michelle Marquette DeVoe says, velvet ropes. And we want to know that we are welcoming the right people in. So if your waiting list process does not already have some type of a velvet rope in place to make sure that we're vetting who these people are before we put them on the waiting list, then I invite you to start thinking about how you can work that in to your waiting list process. Now, let's circle back to the main point of number 3. If the majority of inquiries that you are getting are not a good fit, then that's a sign that somewhere along the line, we're not communicating what we need to communicate. It could be that wherever this inquiry has landed, like if they've inquired through social media or if they've inquired through a website contact form, or if they found you through a Google search and that's how they got to you, right? If they are not a good fit, the sign is that we have not communicated effectively on one of those spaces. Now, if it's a referral from one of your current ideal clients, that's a different matter. But if this is somebody who is new and they've inquired for lessons for, let's give a very clear example of this. So you know what I'm talking about. Let's say that your studio, you focus in on teaching voice lessons to teens and adults. And you are starting to get a lot of inquiries for voice lessons for 6-year-olds. That's a sign that someone, somewhere, there is something going on and your branding's not clear. We're not communicating on our websites, on our socials, on our flyers, on our advertisements, in the way that even in the way that we, present in our personal profiles, if we're talking about our business there, we're not being clear about who we actually work with. So that's when it's time to consider a rebrand. Yeah, Alexis, I got you. I can send you information about boot camp. You know what? It's funny because it's called branding boot camp, but it really could be called rebranding boot camp. And I love that. I love this takeaway from Laura. We got a good takeaway today. Velvet rope. She's vetting her wait list. Beautiful. Hey there, James, over on Instagram. Nice to see you. Okay, so let's move on. So we've got item number 3. Hey, and I want you to know, like, you will probably always get some inquiries that are not a good fit because let's be 100% honest. People don't read. Shh. It's true. Some people don't read, and we can be super duper clear in all of our branding everywhere and have beautifully written website copy and all of that stuff, and you still might get some inquiries that are not a good fit. But it does help. It helps immensely when we can be clear on who we work with, why we work with them, and how we work with them. It's beautiful stuff. Okay, so let's move on to item number 4. But before we do that, I love this. Julie says, I have been intentional in my social media posts to show what type of students my studio is for. Boom, boom, boom. This is what happens, when we really embrace our brand. And I love it. Julie, you are such a great example of how a great rebrand can work. And we're going to be talking about you a little bit more next week. So lots of pictures. Good stuff. I love this too. Deborah says, it is such a time saver to have mostly ideal clients inquire. So true. And Deborah, congratulations on your super win last week. Deborah, is a competitive weightlifter and is freaking awesome. I love it. I'm obsessed. Cassandra, nice to see you. She says who, how, and why. I love that. Okay, let's move on to number 4. This is an important one. Y'all ready? Here we go. Item number 4, you've evolved and you've got a new story to tell. So this brings us back to the analogy that, or metaphor, analogy. I always get them confused in my brain and then I panic. So this brings it back to what I said earlier in the broadcast about branding being like your wardrobe, right? And I'm rocking my savvy wardrobe today because it's finally getting cool enough outside that I can wear sweatshirts in the house, which makes me really happy. Hey, Power Up with Music on Instagram. Nice to see you. We're talking about rebranding. All right, so item number 4, this sign is that you have evolved and you have a new story to tell. So let's kind of unpack this. This could be that your teaching style has evolved. Maybe you've done a lot of continuing education and you've got new skills. You've got new, I like to think of like our teaching skills kind of like a tool belt. You got new tools in your tool belt. It could be that you've evolved in a teacher in a way that you've gotten more clear on the fact that, hey, I don't want to teach 6-year-olds anymore. I don't mean to be ragging on the 6-year-olds. I know there are a lot of teachers out there that love working with them, but you've evolved in some way and you've gained clarity around who you really want to work with. Or we've evolved in a way and we've had breakthroughs personally as performers. We've had breakthroughs as teachers and humans. And that's really important. Let's get a clear example of this because I know sometimes like it's helpful if I can, put this into context. So here's some good context for this. Got to roll up my sleeves for this one. I'll tell a personal story here. That's always fun. My microphone's drooping. When I first started as a voice teacher, like so many of us, I was like fresh, out of college, and I had some good ideas around what voice teaching looked like, but most of those ideas were not my own. And they, I hadn't really tested myself as a teacher yet, but I knew I have like X, Y, and Z skills and I can use those. And then over the period of, how many years it's been like 12 years, no, 15, something like that. I've grown a lot as a voice teacher, and I did a lot of continuing education. I learned a lot about myself as a vocalist, and I started to realize about halfway through that career period that I'm not a classical voice teacher. I can teach art songs and arias, but really, truly, what I wanted to do was to do a couple of things. I wanted to hone in on maybe adult clients who do come from a classical background and they may have lost the ability to sing in a musical theater style. They may have, as a soprano, lost their connection to their chest voice. I'm telling my own story here, y'all. And so I started retargeting and I started rebranding and thinking about how can I communicate what I can offer as a voice teacher and who I can help the best. Because I had a new story to tell, because I had worked on my instrument and I had figured out that I have this whole new palette of colors, these vocal colors that I can play with, and I want to teach other people how to do that. Yay, Cassandra, I love it. So, when you've evolved as a teacher and you have a new story to tell, it's time to rebrand. It's time to learn how to tell that story. It's time to be able to communicate who you are as a human being and as a professional and a teacher, and really learn how to connect that with how you help people. That's one of my favorite things when it comes to rebranding, right? I love it. Karen, right. I found a new passion. And that really shifted my offer. It shifted all of the things. I no longer wanted to just work with people who needed help on pitch matching or, someone who wanted to do competitions. That wasn't my shtick anymore. And getting clear on that and learning how to communicate that clearly in my branding completely changed the people that I started attracting to my studio. Completely changed. All right. Item number 4. You know what, Julie? This is great. I started teaching the way I was taught, and I have evolved from there. I think you've told our story succinctly. Beautifully done. All right. Item number 5. Oh, we're already at number 5 here. Okay. The 5th sign that it may be time for a rebrand is when you're not getting where you want to be. If that is the case, if you have goals in your mind, and hey there, Instagram, just thought I'd glance over there for a second. If you have goals in your mind, but those goals aren't coming to fruition, or you know where you want to be, but it just seems like no matter what you do marketing wise, things are misaligned. When things feel misaligned, and what you have right now in terms of how you've branded yourself in a website, in your storefront, right? In the advertisements that you put out, and the free flyers that you put out, and the way that you're presenting yourself to people that you're networking with, the way that you're presenting yourself on social media, right? If what you have right now is not getting you where you want to be, then it's time to re-examine it. And this is something that I think a lot of us should check in with at least once a year, right? If things feel out of whack and it feels like you're shouting to the universe and people just aren't getting what you want them to get, take a pause. Know that, hey, there might be some tiny shifts that I can make here. And it's going to start with some internal shifts, right? It's going to start with getting clear on who you are, what you want to put out into the universe. Here's a magic question that I'd love for you to ask yourself. This is something that I think is kind of like the first step when we start recognizing that, like number 5, if this is the sign that you're experiencing, I want you to ask yourself a really important question. Y'all ready? Write this down. What difference do you want to make in the world? I'll say it again. What difference do you want to make in the world? When we can start with that question and we can get really clear on what we want to do and why we want to do it, we've taken a first very important step in visiting our brand. So, if you find yourself in a place where you feel misaligned, I invite you to check that brand and to start thinking about what are the shifts that I can make. I love it. Okay, we're going to recap things in a moment here, but before we do, let's bring up our takeaways. Karen says, hashtag takeaway make a difference. I love it. Cassandra says, make yearly check-ins. Beautiful. There's so many different ways that we can do this. And I'm super passionate about it. And if you find yourself needing help, with this, that's what I do. I am really passionate about helping music studio owners and online education experts to brand their businesses in a way where everything starts to align, where we're able to craft our business in a way that aligns with what we want to do in the universe, and be able to communicate those things clearly so that we can start attracting those ideal clients. And when you start doing that, everything shifts. Everything. All right, y'all, let's get to all the goods. Go ahead and drop those rebrands down below. If you are interested in getting the show notes from today, the Savvy Sara bot will send them to you. For those of you who are on the YouTube, you can click on the link in the live chat, or you can look into the description. For those watching on Instagram, drop that word down below and we'll reach out to you. Okay, before we do our recap, this is a great question. Deb, how do I get clear when we've got 4 or 5 teachers? How do I tell our story? That is an excellent question. Multi-teacher studios, branding is a different animal, right? Because we want to brand the overall studio. It's not what some people kind of think is a personal brand, which is what a lot of us kind of see our brands as, because we identify our businesses as like us. And that's not the case even for like soul teachers, right? It's a business. You are not your brand. And so, Deb, that's a fantastic question. I'd love to reach out to you via DM. Let's start a conversation about that, because I think it's, when it comes to branding a multi-teacher studio, there are some specific steps that I want you to consider. So, all right, let's get to the recap, y'all, today. And we're going to do this a little bit differently than normal. Okay, so wait. Here we go. If you joined in late and, you're just getting here, let's restart this. Here we go. 5 signs that it is time for you to rebrand your music studio. Branding is kind of like your wardrobe, and over time, wardrobes change, right? They change when our style change. They change when fashion trends change. They change when we as human beings change. Your wardrobe is not stagnant, and your branding shouldn't be either, because as a teacher, you're going to shift over time. As a human being and business owner, you're going to shift over time. And so we want to make sure that we're revisiting our brands on a regular basis so we know that we are communicating clearly who we are, who we work with, and how we work with them. And a rebrand isn't always, client facing or something that's visual. Oftentimes it's going to be something that's internal. So here are 5 signs that you may need to consider a rebrand in your studio. Sign number 1, when your business model changes. If your model changes, especially if you've done something pretty big, like going from a sole teacher studio to a multi-teacher studio, or if you've shifted from offering one-on-one lessons to offering group lessons, or if you've shifted and started offering things like online courses, it's time to consider a rebrand, because we need to be able to communicate the new offers and the new model to your ideal clients. And if you haven't done it yet, you need to focus in on who those ideal clients are and get super clear on what they need, what their pains are, what their dreams are, so that we can align our marketing to really communicate how we can help them. Sign number 2, if you have gone through a big growth spurt in your business and you've welcomed on a lot of clients, you've added a lot of new offers, then it's time to make sure that everything that you're doing aligns with what you want people to see. So if you've gone through a big shift and you've welcomed in a whole bunch of clients, another thing we want to consider is making sure that we are communicating that brand to our current clients so that we are building an effective community and the type of community that you want in your studio. Sign number 3, if you're getting a lot of inquiries and none of them are a fit, that's a warning sign. That is telling us that somewhere along the pipeline, people are finding you and they're inquiring because they don't understand who you work with. So if you work with teens and adults and you're getting a ton of inquiries for lessons for 3-year-olds, it's time to consider some rebranding and thinking about how are we going to communicate things verbally to people? How are we going to communicate them visually to people? And, when we can do that and we can shift that brand and get really clear on that, guess what happens? The inquiries start to fit better and we can really hone in on the people that we can help the most. Sign number 4, when your teaching style has evolved and you have a new story to tell. We know that we don't stay stagnant as teachers. I know that teachers are learners, right? And we're out there learning new techniques. We're out there deciding, okay, hey, I'm going to shift the new method series that I'm using. I've decided that as a voice teacher, I'm not going to be teaching classical voice anymore. I really need to focus in on what makes me happy and what I'm passionate about and the people I can help the most, and that's musical theater. So if your teaching style has changed and you have a new story to tell, maybe you've gone through a transformation as a singer, as a pianist. Maybe you've gone through an injury and you've had to reteach yourself technique. It's time to look at your branding. And finally, sign number 5, when something feels misaligned and what you have right now is not getting you where you want to go in your business, something needs to change. So if you are clear on what you want to do as a business owner, but what you're noticing is that your marketing efforts aren't paying off, the inquiries are not coming in, the ones that you want are not coming in, or there's, nothing coming in and it's just crickets, it's time to reconsider your branding. And if you need help with that, that's my deal. I love helping music teachers and online educators to rebrand their studios, and I've been doing it for years. I've seen amazing results with clients who have put the work in and they've rebranded their studios, and all of a sudden, they go from having 7 clients to 27 ideal clients, and they are completely a different business. And it's so beautiful to watch those things happen. So if you need help with that, let me know, and drop a rebrand down below, and I'll reach out to you and let you know about how we can help you with branding. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Just to let you all know, Branding Bootcamp starts on September 30th. We only run this program twice a year, and there are only 5 spots left. So if you would like information about Branding Bootcamp and how you can rebrand your studio so that your goals and your business are aligned, I'm here to help you. Thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate you all. If you enjoyed this broadcast, give me some thumbs and some hearts. And we will see you all next week on next Wednesday. And in the meantime, stay savvy and stay you, because you are an amazing teacher and there's no one in the world quite like you. And I think that you are pretty dang awesome. We'll see you next time.